Good morning, welcome to Morning Outlook. This is Kim speaking on Tuesday the 6th of August. So looking at the euro dollar first, and well, it's ran into its daily 50 here, and the daily 100 combination broke through most of the resistance on the way there yesterday, and it's pushed through through early Asian session trading here. Where to today? Well, often when you've had such a move, you get a bit of a consolidation phase. Whether it's going to roll over a little bit more, we'll have to wait and see. It's put this bearish pivot swing in at the moment. One thing I like to look at when we have markets like this is are there a load of buy orders sitting above the highs here? So we just look at the order book for it, and the answer quite clearly here at the moment is it's mainly sell orders sitting, the net sell orders positions sitting above the price level, so there's no significant draw from that perspective. And underneath we got solid support in terms of the buy orders right away down to 1090. At that point it starts becoming a bit more of maybe if it was to be running off this morning or today at some point, selling off hard, that sort of 1090, 1100 sort of area may well be attacked. So it's just bear that in mind if it starts selling at points where it could run back to. So that would be right the way back. That support, okay, so 1080, 1090, 1100 is sitting roundabouts where its weekly pivot is. So it's sitting below all these key moving averages. At the moment, technically, it's yes, it's put a bearish pivot swing in the short term or intermediate term here. Bear flaggy sort of pattern sitting there on the hourlies, but in the shorter time frames here, just bear flag there, but bull flag in all other respects. One thing that may just draw it down this morning is the daily pivot right below us there. So that in itself may provide bounce opportunities. If it sells through that, well, look for further downside. Okay, the pound, I'm just going to show you something before we go on to the pound as such, and you can see here we've got actually it's just faded away a little bit. We had net buy orders, in fact we've seen them sitting there, and it may just be sitting underneath my digits there, but there's net buy orders above, and it could just drag its way up that way. Underneath we've also got net sell orders. Obviously these are the sort of positions that have been taken with the stops going below the lows here. He says no, yep, they're the sell orders. These are the buyers, so that'll be the sell orders for those stops. Likewise, these are the buy orders for the other side. So either side here, we've got a bit of potential. It's a bit more difficult from that perspective. So looking at the technicals on the pound, well, it's choppy as anything, so it's probably not a massive surprise here. I'm just looking at the 60-minute charts just come down here. There is the weekly pivot up, and I do wonder with this sort of movement up here whether it will push into that. Overall, I'm sitting there sort of erring more bearish on the pound still, mainly because of the lack of decision or anything that's likely to happen with Brexit. Now we could just end up in a ranging chop, and that's quite likely. Without any decisions being made until at least September. So I think this month it's just a load of rhetoric between the UK and Europe. At the moment though, this is pitching up. This could be running up to take those earlier, as I say, those stops that are sitting there above out, and it's looking pretty much that may be the way it's going this morning. So that's the pound looking erring towards the bullish side. That weekly pivot sits not much further at 122 and would make a nice follow through target if it continues. The risk of course is it just gets sold back into these highs. If it gets to this point here, well, there's a possible selling would come into that point, but if it can break through, this is quite a nice target. Okay, that's the pound. Dollar yen, let's come out bigger picture here. Really, yen, well, it's had a bit of a mad moment running through there. There you go. pushing up through this morning, earlier hours this morning since midnight. They're pushing through the Asian session, pushing up. There was a bit of divergence on the 4-hourly here. It's still got potential to run up towards its weekly pivot. At the moment, it's sort of 1 minute's risk on, risk off. Yesterday sat there and we sat and watched it. I say sat and watched it. It was pretty much sitting and watching to see if it broke down, or it did break down later on when I wasn't around to trade it. And since has broken both sides of that consolidation, it was looking quite good for continuation to the downside. In fact, you'd have expected it with the euro pushing up, would have expected the yen to be gaining to the downside, but it really didn't do too much yesterday. It was all beneficial towards the euro. Now, where to from where we're sitting at the moment? It does look like, as I say, it's got that weekly pivot above. If it can continue pushing up this way as a possibility. With the tight pinched price action yesterday, it's left the pivots quite pinched here, which in turn, it's already run into its R2 and come off that. It may get up to R3. The probability in normal circumstances is quite low for it to get into that sort of territory on a daily basis, but as it's so pinched, there's the possibility. If we start seeing it roll, well, it may run back off towards the Asian session lows there. In fact, yesterday's lows there. Okay, dollar yen, Aussie dollar. So interest rates were left untouched overnight, and again we've got another currency here that's sort of wanting to this one's pulling back towards, or looking like it may be moving towards its weekly pivot. Got a good probability of being hit in normal circumstances, and it's not been overly bearish in terms of the data that's come through so far, but we got to wait until later in the week before the Reserve Bank of Australia governor speaks. At the moment, this is looking to me like it's broken through some short-term trends here. It's consolidating, and maybe it looks like it could push up towards that weekly pivot. So another weekly pivot, still early days and still got some potential there. Canadian dollar struggling to do too much at all here on the daily, from a daily point of view. You can see it's just chopping along here. Maybe if it can break this 4-hourly 50, we may see a bit more sort of downside potential. Maybe down towards last week's sort of pivot area where it found support. Well, I say found support, it broke through it, but managed to close pretty much on it. Looking here, you see how messy it is. It has just surges here and there, and then it just sort of really is just consolidating for long periods. As I say, the downside break of that 60-minute 200, 4-hourly 50, whichever, may signal further downside. Right, that's pretty much it there. That's it for me today, apart from telling you news-wise. We've already seen the cash rate and then the interest rate for Australia. That came out 5:30 this morning. That was left, as I say, at 1%. No expected changes there. And we have got actually a couple of US speakers today, one at 2:30 and then the next one at 5. The one at 5 is certainly talking about the economics, and the 2:30 one due to speak at a media breakfast event hosted by Federal Reserve Chicago. Audience questions expected. So watch out for that then at 2:30. Maybe get a bit of volatility coming through the market, particularly with the pressure that Trump is trying to put on the Feds to cut rates more significantly. There we go. Have a great day. Bye for now.